Welcome back. According to a memo written by former FBI Director James Comey, after an Oval Office meeting with the president, President Donald Trump allegedly asked Mr. Comey to shut down a federal investigation against the former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. Just the day before, the Washington Post reported that President Trump revealed highly classified information to the Russian Prime Minister and ambassador, which Trump and the White House ended up defending. Here now to talk about these latest topics, we welcome now BMCC Professor as well as Attorney at Law JC Polanco, our political advisor, and also owner of Retrovision Media, Lee Bynes. And we'll start off with Lee with some breaking news out of Russia.
You know what? I haven't had a chance to confirm it yet, but NBC is reporting, as a matter of fact, this morning, 8:23, as I'm walking out the door, that Putin actually has a recording of the tape, and he's says that he could use that to prove that Donald Trump did not, I repeat, did not provide any classified information. The problem that I have with this situation is, if this is true, how does Putin have a recording of that and it hasn't been released to the American public yet? That I find is amazing. I also find that that's a difficult situation for the president to find himself, and that he has to have Vladimir Putin to come to his defense.
I just heard about this news this morning, sitting here, and anything that comes from Putin, I just don't believe. I mean, he runs a dictatorship. Is what he runs in Russia, where the only information that we get is the information that he allows for us to get. And the only information that his own people get is the information that he allows his people to get. So he's not friendly to journalists. If he does have a tape, I'm sure he can edit it. So I don't know how much the American public will trust anything coming out of Putin's mouth at this point.
Well, could I just step on that for just a minute and see, if Donald Trump didn't have such an issue with credibility himself, it would be easier to make that call to say that you can't trust anything that Vladimir Putin has to say. Right now, it's because of that wide gap in the credibility is one of the reasons why he's going to be faced down by Comey in the next couple of weeks.
But one of the reasons he has a hard time with credibility is his connection to Putin. So anything about Putin defending President Trump is going to lack credibility by default. So I don't think that the American public is going to see someone who many believe is his friend anyway, standing up for his friend and believe the stuff that's coming out of Putin's mouth.
Well, as for credibility, let's go to the quote that the president says in a memo, quote, referring to Michael Flynn. Quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go." He told Comey that Flynn hadn't done anything wrong, and Comey was concerned that the president was trying to, quote, stop the investigation.
But that memo was a memo of conversation that then Director Comey wrote for his own file, like he does normally. The New York Times is reporting that memo of conversation was left at the FBI headquarters and that it's there for us to see. The issue is we haven't seen that. A lot of people are pushing back, saying that actually didn't happen. So that memo, to be fair to the viewers, is a memo that comes from Comey, not a memo that comes from the White House, and it's not a memo that we have seen. This is an anonymous source at the FBI who's given that up.
But officials in Washington say this can be introduced as evidence.
Absolutely can be introduced as evidence. The Committee on Intelligence, the Committee on Judicial Affairs, or the Judicial Committee of the House, they can also subpoena those records for sure.
You know, unfortunately, this is just another one of Donald Trump's self-inflicted wounds, simply because of the fact that had he had any idea how Washington works, how government works, taken a simple civics lesson, he would understand that being president of the United States does not give you say over the other branches of government. And for him to come into the office and think that the director of the FBI worked for him and would acquiesce to these demands, if you will, if he wanted to keep his job, that could rise to meet the standard of high crimes and misdemeanors by someone in the White House.
More specifically, and I think you're referring to the obstruction of justice charge
Absolutely.
that exists here. You know, the president has enormous amounts of power. The Constitution gives him a lot of power. For example, the Constitution says it was okay for President Trump to disclose that information to Russia as to what was going on the airlines and commercial flights. Anything that the president says, if he discloses it, it's no longer classified. So that's the kind of power he has. Now, is it unethical? Does it put our lives in danger? Does it put the lives of intelligence officers at danger? Yes, yes, and yes. But does he have the authority? Yes. And to your point, the FBI director does work for the president. So yes, the president can fire an FBI director like we just saw. The issue is, what was the reason?
Perfect.
Is it because you wanted to obstruct justice? That's a crime, and that's the high crimes and misdemeanor that you're hinting at as far as impeachment talks are coming. I don't think impeachment is going to happen anytime soon because remember, you need the votes in the Congress to impeach the president. There's no other option here. You can't sue the president for libel. You can't sue the president because he misbehaved. It's either impeachment or you leave him alone. And I don't think, I know the votes are not there in Congress, either in the House or in the Senate, either in the House to impeach or in the Senate to convict.
You know what, I hate to let JC walk into that one, but quite frankly, based upon what I've been hearing over the last couple of days, a lot of the Republicans are starting to speak out against what they see what's going on right now. I think that the only reason why the Republican establishment, Wall Street, and special interest groups have been holding back up until now is because they want those tax cuts. They want the tax code reformed. They want that $1 trillion infrastructure bill passed through so a lot of contractors can get their hands on that dough and moving forward. When Wall Street realizes that the president has become a liability, and other Republicans have decided that he's such a liability that their futures are being threatened, you're going to see a lot more people coming out a lot sooner than later.
I hear you, but you have to remember that these members of the House of Representatives have gerrymandered these districts so that they can always win re-election. With the exception of about 20 House members where Hillary Clinton won those districts, and those 20 House members happen to be Republicans where Hillary won in November, with the exception of those, the rest of those Republican members of the House are in relatively safe districts, and those people in those districts support Donald Trump, see any attack on him as fake news, and you better be careful if you're an incumbent Republican attacking the president because you're going to get primaried from the right and then your story is over. So it's much more complicated than just Wall Street. It's really all political.
Do Republicans stand a chance supporting Donald Trump in a midterm election? As we talked before, there's a possibility that they could lose seats.
Absolutely, no question about it. No, you're right about that. We can absolutely lose seats in the House. We can lose seats in the Senate. The issue is this. The Democrats have more seats to defend in the midterm elections in the Senate than we do. And it's important to remember that you may be able to flip the Senate a lot easier than you would be able to flip in the House. Our majority in the House is so large that it actually exceeds those moderate Republican members of the House that may be losing their positions in 2018.
The thing is that you only need one House. You only need to grab either the Senate or the House of Representatives. You don't need both to slow Trump down. But I think that at the rate of these incidents that keep occurring, I don't think that, personally, I would say that he could face a impeachment, articles of impeachment long before the
well, based on what we saw out of
elections.
Atlanta, we saw a close race in Atlanta, and that was an election there.
That race was not over
Georgia.
yet.
It's not over yet.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
And so when you're talking about that, it gives an indication as to what we could possibly see in 2018. If the race isn't over right now, and we thought that it was pretty much a done deal before, and it's not, going forward, you have to admit that both the Republican Party is going to have a lot of challenges, and the Democratic Party is going to have to step up their game.
Well, you know what? The Democrats cannot sit back and just take advantage of a situation. They've got to, actually put forward plans and actually show an agenda moving forward. Just watching Trump collapse is not the answer. The collapse is coming. There's no question about that because a lot of Republicans, I will stand by this, are beginning to wonder whether or not that Donald Trump is somebody to hang your hat on. They are looking at his approval numbers sink on a daily basis. It's not just happening here in the United States. This man is going to go abroad. I believe his trip starts on Friday for 9 days. He's going to have to speak to the Israelis. They're already pissed because the Israelis' intelligence was outed. Right. He's going to have to speak to 50 individuals that represent the Arab nations. But I can't wait to see that happen.
Having one house is not enough.
When he shows up at the G7, he's going to have to deal with a lot of whispers behind his back because they know that he has no
Look, I was never a Trump Republican. I'd be one of those Republicans losing my mind if I were in the House or the Senate. I mean, none of this I approve of. I despise everything that's happening. I know a lot of Republicans today wish they would have listened to me and not supported this guy. But he's the president. And guess what? Those poll numbers were just as bad during the campaign. When you heard the videotape and the recordings of him on that bus, when you heard him say he wants a Muslim ban in December of 2015, when he called Mexicans all those names. When he says Megyn Kelly's bleeding from everywhere, all of those things he said, and all of the knowledge that he lacked during the debates, the man still won the election. So when you look at what I'm getting at is the guy had terrible poll numbers, still won the election. The reason he won that election is because how the Electoral College works. The Electoral College map is very similar to the congressional map. And that is why I believe that those poll numbers that you see today do not matter for purposes of the House of Representatives, because those individual districts are very different than the rest of the population. Those individual districts are hard red Republican seats, and they love Donald Trump. That's the truth. Now, you're referring to the activated Democrats. I see a lot of resistance movements across many states. Do those resistance movements and the activated Democrats affect those congressional districts? We don't know that. And unless you have both houses, there's no impeachment.
You get 30 seconds to get the last word.
Well, to step on his lines again, I would have to say that the Republicans have found themselves in a bind. Eventually, one of them are going to stand up. It has to be somebody with some reputation. It has to be somebody with something to lose, not someone who's just simply, I'm not running next term. And as soon as that happens, I believe the final dominoes will fall.
Of course, JC and Lee, that's why we bring you here every week to break this down. And of course, we'll be back with more next week. And thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Good to be back.
Listen, got to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more Open. We got more show coming up right after this. Things are going to get a little bit lighter or tougher. Stay tuned. We'll find out.